The City Double Cash Card presents Tips for Talking Sports at the Office. Number 8, be informed.
I'm going to list some random stats that don't really mean anything.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. I'm nodding, but I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's not working.
Wouldn't it be great if everyone said what they meant? The City Double Cash Card does. It lets you earn double cash back with 1% when you buy and 1% as you pay. The City Double Cash Card. Double means double.
Caught Offside with Andrew Gunling and JJ Devaney.
But it'll be Carlos Vela to take the corner for Mexico. Everyone holding their breath here in Mexico City as it's rolled backwards indeed, but that's going to be the final whistle. The U.S., who held the lead for 17 minutes, holds on in the second half for a third time ever. They get a tie at the Estadio Azteca World Cup qualifying.
Oh, yes. Caught Offside late Sunday night on the East Coast, the Upper West Side of Manhattan. It is Andrew Gunling and JJ Devaney. What's up, brother?
Hey, man, how are you?
Good?
You satisfied?
Yes, I am. I don't know if I speak for everyone when I say that, but I think it was John Strong or Stu Holden, one of them near the end of the broadcast tonight, said if you told Bruce Arena coming into this set of qualifiers that you'd be walking away from it Sunday night with 4 points, he would have signed up for it, and I think I would have as well. And here we are with those 4 points, and I think I'd have to live by that. So, yeah, satisfied.
Mixed bag on Twitter. I know we're going to get to some of the tweets, but it's been a case of maybe they should have gone for it more, didn't like the formation, versus that is a very good point on the road in a place where we don't traditionally do well.
No. I mean, you and I talked last week about the lack of success that the U.S. has had there in World Cup qualifying. This is just the third point. So, and they barely ever lead. I mean, the fact that they held the lead, you just heard it from John Strong there on the call on Fox Sports 1, the fact that they held the lead for 17 minutes coming into tonight, what was it, 21 minutes total?
Yeah.
Ever? So I think you have to I think we like to fancy ourselves a team that's good enough to go difficult places and win, but I don't know. I don't want to say that's unrealistic. I've seen this team win good games against good teams on the road, but I don't think that we're at a point right now, especially with how good Mexico is. I don't want to take anything away from them. I just don't think we're at a place right now where we can expect to win at that stadium. So I'll take the point.
They're in a very good place right now, and I've had a chance to see them live in the last 10 days, and they are that good. They were hurt by injuries tonight, but you wouldn't have known it. They've got depth and they've got strength, and I think it's a very good point.
Yeah. Now, look, people can say, I guess we'll start with that. I don't know who it was that tweeted that to us tonight, but the idea that people wish we would have gone for it a little bit more.
Well, Peyton Gallagher tweeted us and he said, "Should I feel comfortable with this draw? ? I don't. We could have gotten more from this at full strength. We are the better side."
Well, look, here's the thing.
That speaks to the changes that were made in the lead up to the game.
Fair. But at full strength, remember, Mexico was missing some of their best players as well. No Miguel León, no Tecatito for odd reasons. No Rafa Marquez, who I don't know that he's part of their starting 11, but the fact that he was not available.
They tested him in the warm-up games, and he clearly, obviously, didn't come through fit enough.
Right. So at full they weren't at full strength tonight either. So that is part of that argument, I would think. And look, even if you are of the mindset of I wish we had gone for it a little bit more, they defended the hell out of the second half, and Christian Pulisic, the ball fell to him late in that game with a chance to win it. So, you're right. Maybe you would have liked more consistent attacking opportunities in the second half, but you did have those chances. Michael Bradley hitting the post relatively late in that game. There were some chances where the U.S. came very close to taking advantage of them. They just couldn't quite do it. So I get what he's saying. You and I, when we were watching tonight, the corner late, they play it short to Josie, who tries to just kind of hold it in the corner and then get another one.
That's a moment where I think conservatism took over, and I would have whipped that one into the box and see what would have happened. I mean, you brought Josie on for a reason. He's physically imposing. Get someone to take the corner, whip it in under Ochoa, who generally doesn't catch the ball, and see what happens.
Right. So that's a moment there where if you were a U.S. fan...
But that's nitpicking.
It is, especially because, look, this U.S. team is capable of being caught on the counterattack, and you're probably at your most susceptible for that right off of a corner kick.
Now, sorry to cut across you, Andrew, just again on a similar point, Francisco Zentino, who is a Mexico fan, the U.S. played with 11 players behind the ball. Okay, that's not quite true, but because if it was an open game, they would have lost. I think there's a lot in that, but just to be a bit clearer about what Bruce did, we said beforehand you can't go 3 at the back, and he played 3 centre halves tonight. We noticed how compact that became a 5 really when they didn't have the ball, and Stu Holden spoke about it, how good the spacing was. There was no gaps, how narrow the US made the field, how difficult it was for their wide players, Gallardo and Lozano, to actually make an impact. So, say you beat Yedlin on the other side, you had Tim Ream coming across. And how many blocked crosses did we see by the US? How many times did we see the US frustrate Mexico from getting crosses into the box?
Yeah.
You've got to give the coach credit for that. He doubled up on both sides. Look, say for example, Paul Arriola, he was an auxiliary full-back. He really was. He didn't get forward that much, but his job wasn't to do that.
Right.
And you had Beasley on the other side to give yourself that cover. Look, there's 2 ways to view this. Was this the coach admitting that Mexico were superior in wide areas and could hurt the US? Yes, but look, what is it about? It's about getting a point on the road. It's about not being beaten at the Azteca. Yep. It's about advancing your chances of getting to Russia. And he ticked all the boxes tonight, and he got his tactics right.
Look, I'll be honest, I was truly stunned when you texted me, because I was driving into the studio tonight, and you texted me and said, you see this lineup? And so right off the bat, when you text me that, obviously it means that something odd has happened. I was shocked, really shocked when I saw what Bruce Arena did, because the whole thing that we've been hearing all along about Bruce Arena is, stability. He knows who his 11 are. That's what you're going to get. He loves the 4-4-2. That's what you're going to get with Bruce, just classic Bruce Arena stuff. And this was just such a removal from that. Especially, we probably opened ourselves up to look kind of foolish with how we ended last week's podcast, previewing the Mexico game, and you said, well, we're certainly not going to see 3 in the back again like what happened in Columbus. And I said, no chance we'll ever see that again. And now I know you said it was kind of a 5, but the formation was, would you say that was a 3 in the back with 5 in the midfield and wingbacks?
No. There was no wingbacks in the traditional way where you've got 3 centre halves and your wingbacks are getting up and down the line. I mean, how many times did we really see Yedlin get forward?
I thought Yedlin did. Arriola maybe not as much, but even he forced that corner in the first half.
How many times did Beasley get forward? I think it was a shape that when you lost the ball, it was 5 at the back. It just was.
Yeah, all right.
It was at times it was almost 5-4-1 because you saw Pulisic drop deep and Kellen Acosta, for example. Did we see much of him getting forward? Not a whole lot. He was a body. And even when Darlington Nagbe came in, it was bodies. So basically you had that screen in front of a back 5. Look, you want to call that negative? I'm okay with that. The outball was Pulisic and it worked. We had that chance where he slalomed through and cut inside and bent that shot wide.
He was bottled up most of the night.
He was, but it was more bottling up from the fact that we didn't have the ball to get it to him. They had a huge amount of the ball, and they'd go across the field and back the field, and then they'd try and probe on the left side and on the right side. And largely speaking, apart from that huge Aquino chance where Nagbe got sucked inside and the ball comes across and he half volleys it over the bar, and the free kick by Herrera, which, I mean, how do you stop a free kick like that? I don't care who you are. The US held resolute, held strong, and the second half from Cameron and Ream, Gonzalez was encouragingly good.
Yep. The last thing I would say about the lineup itself, it's the kind of thing where if Jurgen were in charge and he did this, he'd be getting just crushed for it.
Yeah, people would be flipping out, including myself, like saying, why are you playing players that aren't regularly there? Yep. Why are you disrupting the centre-half partnership? And you know what? It doesn't matter a jot when you come away with the desired result. Yeah. And they did. Look, would you have liked to held on till half-time with the lead? Sure. Would you have liked to have held on longer than 17 minutes with the lead? Sure. But we've seen from Mexico that they are a force. And I think just look at the overall context of the group. That is a good result.
let's go through some of the moments. I guess we'll go through it chronologically. Right out of the gate, the first 5 minutes of this game were fascinating, as it seemed like Carlos Salcido was just going to do everything in his power to be sent off. 2 elbows within the span of 45 seconds.
Take your pick. I tweeted, take your pick, Andrew. Whatever one you want to go with, either the one on Beasley or Bobby Wood, they're both red cards.
I mean, the one on Wood was probably the more egregious one, which was the second one, which for me makes it all the more shocking that he wasn't at least given a yellow.
The first one was so cynical. He
was
saw Beasley out on the sideline. He saw that the ball was hanging, and he went and creamed him.
I guess the fact that he had just done it, and somebody, whether it be the linesman, the official, someone had to have seen the first one, even if they weren't sure of contact. You saw the end result with Beasley down on the ground. So that thought now needs to be in your mind, and for him to then come back and do it just seconds later. The fact that they couldn't get a yellow card for that, I don't know. I don't want to whine about officiating tonight because both teams, I'm sure, had moments where you could be upset about something, but that just felt particularly egregious to me.
I'm going to say something here that's not. Oh boy. It's not defending the referee, but the referee, that was after how many minutes? 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Those incidents were. So the referee he's just allowing the game to settle down. And referees don't like to give cards early. They certainly don't like to do it when they're at the home ground in an intimidating atmosphere. For me, Andrew,
elbow to the head though. That's not just a hard foul.
Hey, what did I say? I'm just trying to explain the referee's thinking.
You don't know what
he bottled it. He bottled it in front of the home crowd.
And yet, nevertheless, just 2 minutes after that, it was Michael Bradley scoring what I think has to be considered one of the great goals that we have seen in this rivalry. For me, before tonight, I don't know if this overtakes it. I think Giovanni Dos Santos' goal in the Gold Cup final, that lob to put it away to make it 4-2.
Ran around Tim Howard and
Tim Howard just pounds
over.
the ground when it goes. It was just it was devastating for the U.S., but it was a
stunning
phenomenal
finish.
Goal. But I think this one, if it doesn't surpass it, it certainly is in that next category with the Paul Aguilar goal from the CONCACAF Cup final. Here it was, Michael Bradley for the U.S.
Chicharito being harassed. Bradley's going to escape from Herrera. Bradley trying to chip Ochoa, and he scores! Michael Bradley!
John Strong with one of the most genuine moments of announcing that you will ever hear right there. He was clearly as stunned as everybody who was out there watching.
Yeah, and the Aztec Stadium got so quiet so quickly that you wouldn't be surprised if the only voice you could hear in the ground was John Strong. And he scores!
Yeah.
What a finish.
God, was that something.
2 touches. One, the interception.
Well, the interception, and then
the
wherewithal to see that Ochoa is, what was it they said, about 11 yards or so out of position.
But more than that, the 2 covering defenders were advancing quickly. And what's the difference between a Sunday League footballer and Michael Bradley, apart from the fact he's a pro and he's a top pro? The difference is you'll see in Sunday League football a guy just put his head down and move his legs as fast as he can, and when he gets where he thinks he's in range, just hit it and hope. He gets his head up, Andrew, and he sees Ochoa off the line, and it's inch perfect. It's absolutely inch perfect.
Yeah, Ochoa didn't even get a touch. Sometimes you'll see it where the keeper gets back and is able to swipe at it, but it still goes. It couldn't even get a touch on it.
And I would say that, okay, it was a much more defensive role tonight for Michael Bradley, but he executed his role perfectly. And maybe that goal was the basis of confidence that he needed to go on and make all the tackles that he did, make the interceptions that he did, and play genuinely brilliant. Let's not forget in the second half, that volley. What a beautiful volley that's curling and just hits the outside of the post.
Yeah, here's how that one sounded again. John Strong on FS1.
Bradley is in a little bit of space in the middle. Great ball by Acosta to find him. Bradley letting fly. It's off the outside of the post.
I mean, that was a hi haters, look how well I'm playing kind of. I mean, it seems to me that in most major games that we've covered here on our emergency podcast for the US men's national team, we've come back to the studio to a plethora of texts from people saying,
right, because
what does he do? He gives the ball away, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
Tonight, in a big spot where he was needed, he played a captain's role. He was excellent.
Right, because oftentimes he's a holding midfield role and people just get frustrated, and understandably so. We've criticized him before on this podcast many times that he does give away possession too easily, and tonight it was not the case. And the role that they had him playing, and I'll get to it right now, he's my man of the match, with Jeff Cameron in a very close second, although there's one moment for him that we'll talk about in a minute,
right,
which prevented him from equaling Bradley. But it wasn't just Bradley's goal. It wasn't just him then hitting the post with a near game winner in the second half. Defensively, because you said before, we were playing with 3 center backs, but Michael Bradley, in his role tonight, he was almost a fourth. I mean, how many times did we hear John Strong saying, and Bradley heads it away in the middle? And he was planted in the middle of the box, and time again, he was repelling Mexican balls played into the center of that box, and I thought he was fantastic. He was tireless in his work rate, which we've come to expect from him. But again, sometimes you feel like it's a chicken running around with his head cut off, but not tonight. It felt like he always had a purpose with who he was attacking. I thought he was great. I thought it was one of the best games we've seen from him in a long time.
I thought his passing at times was very good. That ball that was drilled over the top, I think, was it for Beasley? Just a perfectly weighted pass. He had a good game tonight, and I think the role suited him tonight. He realised what he had to do very, very clearly, and that's down to the coach.
Yep. Now, after he scored that goal, the game did spring to life, as you would expect. You knew, I mean, we were watching it, and you just knew, look, 1-0 is just not going to be the final score of this game. Now, whether that's because the U.S. get a second or Mexico switches on, who knows? And it did turn out to be Mexico switching on. Chicharito had that near chance when him and Guzan collided. Shortly after that, you had the Brad Guzan, Jeff Cameron miscommunication, which was kind of some nervy moments there with the two of them talking. And then finally, you could just see it building. It felt like Mexico was going to get one, and here it was. Carlos Vela was the goal scorer for Mexico.
Rivas, second chance. Gonzalez, one is in there. He couldn't get full contact on it. And Ochoa will try to send Mexico quickly the other way. Chicharito on the ball. Great little cutback on Kellen Acosta. Carlos Vela now. He's got Fabian in the middle. Beasley the defender. Vela trying to find space on that left foot. He does now. It ties the game.
Yeah, you didn't really mention how that starts, though. That's on a corner kick for the U.S.
Right, and Bobby Wood, if he makes contact there, look, maybe the ball gets blocked before it reaches Ochoa, but it's point-blank range. If he gets good contact, he probably scores a goal there.
But he whiffs on it.
Yes.
And they break.
And they do.
And you pointed out something to me. There's 2 mistakes that happen defensively where we get caught out, and maybe it's experience, maybe it's not having top-level experience in one of the cases. The first case is Chicharito has to be taken out by Kellen Acosta, or that tackle has to be won. That was a weak tackle from Acosta, and it allowed Chicharito to break and get the ball out wide to Vea. A lot of people criticised Beasley on Twitter. You're absolutely wrong. He could have shown him down the line, but he did the right thing. He showed him into traffic, right into the centre. There were plenty of US bodies there, and we, how shall we put it? We circled Jeff Cameron.
For me, it was Cameron and
Acosta again. You've got to go charge that ball down. You've got to close space down, because when he's coming inside, he's looking to pull the trigger. Now, it was a great finish, but Cameron did nothing. Now, for as good a second half as he had, that is the moment that does stick out for me a bit, which is probably unfair, but goal-scoring opportunities are they're what you remember. So Acosta and Cameron there, you just think we limited the chances up until that, and then Mexico started to take a grip on the game, and it was good to get to half-time at 1-1.
Yeah, it was, because you wondered if that was going to open the floodgates for Mexico, and it never really did.
And then that's credit to the manager again. You know, that system where he shut them down out wide was really, really good.
Yeah, so we get to the second half, and again, we there were some near chances for both sides. We already played the Bradley off the post for you. This was the one that really had U.S. fans' hearts up in their throats. This was Hector Herrera on the free kick for Mexico.
It'll be Herrera off the bar! Ream out jumped on the loose ball. Bradley able to poke it up in the air. Salcedo couldn't do anything about it. Beasley gets it away.
Nothing Guzan could do about that. It was just one of those, either it's going in or it's not, and it doesn't matter what the goalkeeper's impact is.
It's nearly 30, 35 yards out.
It was a great take by Herrera.
It's perfect, and the way it moved in the air.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if anything, he hit it too well, but from that distance, you have to hit it perfectly, and he did. And I mean, Guzan would have had to grown a go-go gadget arm to get to it.
We mentioned Guzan. We talked about some of the other changes. That was one of the ones that really caught my eye, because it didn't seem necessarily like Tim Howard had done anything wrong, per se, to lose his starting position from one game to the next. I guess they're just in a situation right now where Bruce Arena, and this is not crazy, I think Bruce Arena may just view it that they're kind of 1 and 1A. Like, there's really not a ton separating Howard and Guzan in terms of their overall quality right now.
Now, Stu Holden did posit an opinion as to why the change was made from probably his sources inside the camp, was that Tim Howard has had a heavy workload with Colorado over the last few months, and that in a game where there'd be so much kicking, he didn't want to aggravate the injury that he picked up beforehand, where his groin he hurt from all that kicking. So that was part of it. I don't subscribe to that one so much. I made a point to you that in a couple of moments, including the Chicharito chance in the first half, where it bounces in, I can't remember who came rushing out, and suddenly there's this gap. Chicharito is onside, and he lifts it over Guzan,
right? The collision.
And puts it wide.
Yeah.
The collision. That's brilliant goalkeeping by Guzan. He gets up, he's off his line like a shot, reads the danger, and he gives Chicharito no angle to score. My view is, and if you look at it, Guzan is quicker off his line. He reads crosses better. He's not perfect, but he is quicker and he is more dynamic off his line than Tim is at the moment. And maybe that's due to his advancing years. I don't know. That's my opinion.
And he was good tonight. I wouldn't say that he was necessarily at fault.
No,
for the goal.
I thought he read some, including the situation I just talked about there. I thought he read it pretty well.
It's funny. I mean, overall, when we kind of assess the changes made by Arena from one game to the next, I don't necessarily know if you could look at any of those players and say, boy, did Arena get it wrong with that guy. They all came in. They did a job well. And the funny thing was, all of us, the media, you and I, it feels a little bit like everyone got it wrong in the sense that, well, they're playing in Real Salt Lake in Colorado because he wants to get these guys ready for the altitude of the Azteca. Now, that was true, but what we kind of failed to realize was it wasn't just true of the starting 11. It was true of the whole team. And the training was just as important for these guys in getting ready for the altitude of Azteca as playing that 90 minutes against Trinidad and Tobago was. And so we looked at that game and thought, well, he's just trying to get this group ready for the altitude of the next one. It was really the whole team. It wasn't just those guys.
Allow me to be a negative Nancy for 1 second.
Yeah.
And if you want to talk about this formation in the negative sense, you can say, well, he stopped Mexico. We didn't see the U.S. play that much. We didn't see Pulisic get on the ball. We had a few chances, but they were mainly on the break. And that's okay. But mainly, what are you trying to achieve when you go to a ground that you've never won on in a World Cup qualifier? You're trying to come out of there without being beaten.
Yeah.
And he did find ways to stop what was a rampant Mexico attack. So I give him credit for that. But the negative side is that you look at Nagbe, Areola for me, Kellen Acosta in particular, they were just bodies, Andrew.
Yeah.
They fitted into a system that was designed to constrict space and not allow Mexico to run through the US in the same way they'd done Ireland in the warm-up game or Honduras in the previous qualifier. But still, look, I'm going to stop being a negative Nelly for 1 second, and here's a positive, Peter.
Oh.
Matt Sears, heck of a game. USA showed a ton of heart. Might have been 3 points if played in the US. Let me see. Brian McGuigan. I actually subscribe to this one, Andrew. Take the draw and the point, boys. Come on, lads. World Cup push continues.
Absolutely. That's absolutely right. You take it.
Then there's Luis Manuel Cruz.
No.
Awful result. If I had a chance, I'd rip Bruce Arena to his face. I mean, I don't understand that. Let me tell you.
It's very hard to say that.
Let me tell you something. From a previous qualifying campaign with another country, I remember England going to Italy against a very good Italian team in 1997, and they set up quite similar to the US, 5 in midfield, and they needed a draw, and they got a point out there, and it was one of the great results. They hailed the result because of the performance, and they could have won it late on, just like the US with the Bradley shot. Mm-hmm. These are classic away games in World Cup qualifying. They're not there to entertain you guys. They're there to achieve a result that gets you to Russia.
Yep.
That's it.
Absolutely. Now, before it was all said and done, there was one last moment where you thought maybe the U.S. are going to find a way to pull this out. It was Christian Pulisic late on for the U.S.
Pin deep for very long stretches. Side Altidore 1-on-3, able to get a flick. Here's Pulisic now. Nagbe running in front of him. Pulisic wants to keep it himself. Christian Pulisic puts it just wide.
And that was really the last legit chance for either side. in the match. You thought the way the seas kind of parted for him, the way it flicked off of Josie's head, and all of a sudden Mexican's defense was caught flat-footed.
And Andrew's thinking, do I open with Boy Wonder Watch?
Well, I stood.
Oh, you
the
got
ball
up,
came
yeah.
to his feet. I stood, and I thought, this is the moment. And the light brightened around him, but it was not meant to.
Oh, yeah, you were out of your chair.
Yeah.
And
several times tonight, but that was the one where I thought he's going to find a way. He's been quiet all night long, and he's going to find a way, and he's going to go down as just right here, and this could be the last game he ever plays for him, and he's the greatest player in the history of this nation.
And it shows how confident he was, because he didn't hit it with the laces or welly it, as we say. He tried to bend it.
He kind of passed it a little bit.
Yeah, he tried to. If anything, he was too nonchalant. By the way, we may have to create a new watch
for
Zeus Dog, because people love to tell us when he's doing anything. Sean O'Connor at CO Soccer Pod, at A Gundling, Zeus Dog coming on.
Yep, people got very excited at the mere mention of it. Well, when John Strong said it looks like Graham Zusi warming up, I started barking in the studio, to which you just rolled your eyes in horror. But I think that needs to be the new thing for him. Like, we need to, when he does a good thing.
It's been embraced. David Ryan messaged me.
Yeah.
This is weeks ago he messaged me. When Zusi came on late and made an interception, without thinking, I said, nice job, Zeus Dog. Thanks for that. So you've started this one.
Proud of it, too. So in the end, 1-1 is the final. Here are some of your stats. And they're interesting because I don't know. I guess they speak to really exactly how the game was played. Do you care to wager a guess as to what possession was?
65 Mexico?
No.
Go on.
74-26 Mexico.
Ooh, wow.
However, shots were 10-7. Shots on target were actually 2-1 in favor of the United States. So the U.S., in their limited possession, seemed to do a little bit more with it. We talked about it. I mean, a lot of lateral passing for Mexico. I'm sure it was frustrating for Mexican fans, and you saw that on tonight's broadcast. Spells where it sounded like the crowd was booing and whistling their own team. And, yeah, the U.S.
And they left early.
The U.S. put 10 guys. Bobby Wood stayed up top for most of the game, but by and large, there was about 10 guys behind the ball, 9 guys behind the ball pretty much throughout this game. The U.S. were just not going to allow Mexico to weave their way through, to find a pocket of space. And even with that, Mexico still did have their moments, but the U.S. were not going to make it easy for them. They defended the hell out of this game. And like you said, it's not a beauty contest. You got to just get the point on the road in your most difficult game. They achieve it. So I'm not gonna sit here and complain about the way that it went down.
No, I don't think so. What we did complain about, one little incident, if we were going to be mean to Alejandro Bedoya for falling over just accidentally, at least he wasn't trying to dive. Chris McLiverty, if a strong breeze was to happen to blow up against the Azteca, would it fall to the ground like the Mexican players? There was an egregious dive in the first half.
Chicharito.
And just because
he should have been carded for that.
Absolutely. And I thought the ref was going to show some cojones and actually pull the card out, because he stood over him.
He was right there to see it. There really, I thought, should have been a card for that one. That was a little bit
between the elbows by Salcido and the diving of Chicharito in that first half.
And by the way, you mentioned kind of casually there about the fans leaving before the game ended. Now, look, I am not waging an attack against Mexican fans here specifically.
That's clearly what you're doing.
No. That is not what I'm doing. They have incredibly passionate fans, and I would never question that. This is kind of an attack against all fans, because this happens in all sporting events. So it's the 89th minute. It is a 1-1 game. And on Fox Sports 1, they're talking on the broadcast about the stadium now emptying out. What are you doing? You've been here. I understand if it's 4-0 and it's the 70th, and you just say to yourself, you know what? I'm not enjoying this. This is not fun. There's still 25 minutes with stoppage time left. I'm going to just get the hell out of here right now and cut my losses. But it's 1-1. You've stayed. It's 90 minutes. It's tied. It's the biggest rival. This is the biggest game that you will play in this stadium during World Cup qualifying in this cycle of the World Cup. Why are you leaving now? Sure, you've been disappointed up to this point with what Mexico has done or what little they've done against this U.S. defense, but it only takes one moment. We see it happen all the time. It's tied in the 90th. Where are you going? I don't get it. And people do it in every sport. We saw it, of course, the famous one was the Heat and Spurs in Game 6 of the NBA Finals. The Heat are down 4 with a minute to go, and people are just couldn't wait to leave the stadium. And then Ray Allen hits a 3, and they go to overtime, and the rest is history. But you've stayed this long. It's still close. Why?
You've paid so much money probably for your ticket, too. It's a World Cup qualifier. It's one of the big rivalries in the game right now. Also, what are you leaving for? What are you in a rush for?
I mean, I assume
to
it's
beat
to
the
beat
traffic? Oh. Jenny, if we leave now, we can catch the end of the opera.
I just wonder about that. Like, is that?
Oh my God! I left the cooker on.
But like, who remembers? The night where they beat the traffic. Like, no one 20 years from now celebrates that.
I'm going to set my best record getting home.
But like, you're risking missing out on a historic moment so you can beat the traffic. But nobody is remembering. Oh. Man, I remember that game 20 years ago at the Azteca. Left right at the perfect time, beat the traffic. It was the stuff that legends are made of. No one remembers that. I don't get it.
Love
you deal with the one night of traffic.
I love hearing the stories of the early leavers who are halfway down the road and then an epic comeback happens.
And they try to get back in.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that stadium, by and large, it's a very unusual stadium. First of all,
Brett DeRue actually tweeted us about this. Okay. Azteca looks like Yankee Stadium with all the empty seats in the lower bowl.
But that's the thing. They are blocking out. There must be somebody who can tweet us who knows. We're just talking.
I mean,
about
they
this
do
right
have
now.
a moat in this stadium.
But what is that? They are blocking out probably the seats that you would think they could sell for the most money.
Yeah, there's
just huge swaths along the sidelines where no one can sit. Meanwhile, it's like the tallest stadium I've ever seen. It just goes up and up and up. But why aren't people sitting in what you would presume to be really high-priced ticket zones? I don't get it. That stadium is it's just different than any other stadium I think I've ever seen.
It's got a middle section that they have some like kind of plastic tarp over that no one will ever sit in for some reason.
It just underwent this renovation. You would think
I would be able to answer this if I could have gone on the stadium tour, but they...
That's a point of real sore spot for you.
They owe me money. What
are you talking about?
They canceled the tour.
So you paid.
I paid. I was supposed to go on the Friday. Then they called me and said, "Oh, there's a game there. You can't go now." No. There is no game on. There is no League MX games this weekend. There's no international games. What are you talking about? You also took my money already.
Wait, so you have not gotten your money back?
No, I haven't got my money back yet.
Well, I think we need to do something about this.
Oh, I think we do too. But you can come on Sunday. Yeah, we're flying out Sunday evening. Oh, but it's in the afternoon. It's a 4-hour tour. I don't need 4 hours to see the Azteca Stadium.
You paid.
Mm-hmm. $36.
Oh, no. We can't.
No, I'm still fighting them on it. I'm going to take them to Judge Judy.
Yeah.
The cases are real. The rulings are final.
Judith Scheinland does not mess around.
No, she doesn't. And she's particularly good on stadium tour litigation.
Yeah, I've heard that about her. So what's next for the U.S. World Cup qualifying? Nothing now until September 1st. Ugh.
That seems like a long time away, but guess what? We're going to be midway through June soon. Then you got July, and then August is just the Premier League's
We know how calendars work. Thank you. September 1st, a home game against Costa Rica, which is going to be a huge one. Oddly enough, Costa Rica does not play until Tuesday. What is that? Why are
You're
the U.S.
very upset by this.
I just don't understand why the U.S. and Mexico are being forced to play 2 days before the rest of the group. It just seems like an odd spacing.
Costa Rica get everything their way.
It's a very odd spacing of games, but that will be a very big game for the U.S. in trying to determine maybe if they're going to be a third or fourth place finisher. Home against Costa Rica, with what Costa Rica just did to the U.S. on the road in that fixture, the U.S. have to come out for that one. And who knows who will be hurt by then. But you don't know.
Always look on the bright side of life. Who knows who'll be hurt by then? I probably won't even be alive. I'll be dead, but you can enjoy it.
Yeah. Oh, it is a bright future.
We haven't used that in a while.
You don't know those. I'm just saying it's September. There's so much that's going to happen between now and then. Who knows what
they call you positive, Andy, don't they?
And then September 5th, the away leg against Honduras, and then they're off again for a month until October 6th against Panama, and then they close it out October 10th away against Trinidad and Tobago. And you really hope that game doesn't mean a whole lot because we saw that Trinidad and Tobago can be pesky and just needing a result,
physical and
needing a result in that game on the road. It's just, I don't know, that one I would like to be able to rest somewhat easy going into that. But look, you look at Costa Rica, Honduras, and Panama, the 3 games leading in, and you do think, with 2 of those being home games, the 2 more difficult ones, Costa Rica and Panama, you think you got 9 points there. Like, I look at that and I see 9 points. And if the U.S. does that, they break that 16-point barrier, which typically no one has ever achieved 16 points in the Hex and not advanced to the World Cup. And I would assume that would be the case once again. So I think that has to be the goal. Win those 3 games, and then the Trinidad-Tobago game hopefully means nothing. Now, in between all this, of course, is the Gold Cup, which is funny. July 8th is when that kicks off for the United States against Panama. Then they're also in a group with Martinique and Nicaragua, so you would certainly expect them to advance out of that group. But it's funny now how people are saying that this is the Gold Cup cycle where it doesn't really matter. Like,
a lot of people have said it. We had a tweet, didn't we?
Yeah. Well, I saw Mexico announce their side for it, and it's missing a lot of their key names that you would expect to see. And the U.S., we saw the 40-man.
But Mexico have a Confederations Cup as well.
Right.
The clubs are going to be on the phone to them, especially their European clubs, saying, don't you dare.
Right. And so you're right. For Mexico, I understand it. But here's the thing, though. With the restructuring of the Gold Cup, the whole point was that they all mattered. The winner of this Gold Cup, it used to just be that Gold Cup that happened a couple years ago. That's the one that feeds the Confederations Cup, but not anymore. We all know what the format is now. The 2 Gold Cup winners play in the CONCACAF Cup final, and they go to the Confederations Cup. So, I don't know, they matter equally, don't they? I mean, like, this one is just as important as what the next one is going to be.
I mean, I guess so.
Oh, you seem very engaged.
The Confederations Cup is next on our horizon. I can't even think about the Gold Cup.
I'm thinking about everything. This mind never stops, JJ.
I have thought about the Gold Cup in terms of,
that's happening.
And we can try out Matt Miazga. And we can try out other people.
We can cup tie Jesse Gonzalez.
We can do that.
Could be important. I mean, goalkeeper seems like a spot all of a sudden where the U.S. need something on the horizon. So that we never really talked about that, but that was an interesting inclusion. So now this stretch of qualifying is over, like we said, until September. Any final takeaways, surprising things, disappointing things? Off the top of my head, maybe not tonight, but I thought Darlington Nagbe the other night was really positive, that his development looks to be continuing in the right direction. And I thought tonight, with all the changes that were made, I thought some guys who we get on had really good accounts of themselves. Like we mentioned, Bradley. I thought, we haven't talked much about Beasley, but I thought he was good tonight. Jeff Cameron, other than the one moment where you would have liked to have seen him step up to prevent that Vela goal, he was in the second half when the U.S. were just defending for their lives. He was their MVP of that half. So, there were several guys during this stretch that I thought came away looking pretty good.
For me, I think the manager and his flexibility and his ability to look at a game and figure out a game plan to get what was needed was pretty good, because we had a U.S. soccer legend in Alexi Lala sit across from us before Christmas, was it? And say, you know what, he's not going to rewrite the rule book. You're going to see a lot of 4-4-2, but you're going to get results. That's not what happened tonight.
We got half of it did. We got the result, just maybe not in the way that you would have expected it to go down.
I thought he was flexible. I thought it was interesting.
Yep. So there you go. U.S. men's national team. Before we get out tonight, there were some other really eventful things that have happened during this international period, specifically in Europe, where we'll start with what occurred at Hampden Park yesterday. The final 8 minutes of that game, from about the 85th until the end of stoppage time, it was just as gripping a 8-minute stretch that I really think I've ever seen in this sport. Just every aspect of it. And this is going to sound so cheesy, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's that little patch of time right there is what it's what really causes us to be addicted to this game, because you see things like that and you just want to chase that feeling. You think, well, that was so amazing, because the rush, we've always said that the rush you get from a goal, there's not really anything comparable to it in any other sport, because you just know that it's such a hard thing to achieve.
Yeah.
Right. So the rush of that is already really not comparable to anything else you see. And to see 3 amazing goals between 2 bitter rivals in just a key moment of a really key game, especially for Scotland, you don't want to miss the next time that happens. And so it's what keeps people coming back to the sport over and over again. This is how it sounded on Fox Sports 1.
Griffiths takes and finds the back of the net. It's absolutely glorious.
from Griffiths. His first goal for his country, and it is one that will go down in the history books. He's done it, and he's done it against England. Griffiths, oh, he's done it again! These are seriously special moments for Scotland. Lightning has struck twice. Lee Griffiths. Harry Kane! Captain Kane to the rescue for England. What an astonishing last 10 minutes we've had here at Hampden. Scotland come from behind to take the lead. And Harry Kane, his first match as England captain, 3 minutes into stoppage time, looks to have salvaged the point.
What scenes?
I mean, that was a rivalry which we were talking about in historical terms because we haven't seen it recently. I mein, Scotland last beat England in a competitive game in a two-leg qualifier for Euro 2000. In the second leg, they beat them 1-0 at Wembley, but it wasn't enough because Paul Scholes had scored 2 in Hampden the week before. So we don't see this anymore. So people like me who are old fuddy-duddy historians, I wanted this to be a good game. I couldn't have imagined it was going to be that good.
I felt so conflicted at the end because everyone who listens to this podcast knows that Harry Kane is one of my favorite players of all time. And yet, I just couldn't help but be so disappointed when he scored that goal because just seeing that fight back from Scotland and seeing what the atmosphere in that place was. And look,
right.
England didn't need that game. They could lose that game, and yeah, it would have been embarrassing.
It would have opened up the group quite a bit, and it would have caused serious question marks because it was against Scotland for Gareth Southgate. Remember, this is what we call a fledgling manager.
Yeah, and you know what? That is true because Slovakia did win, and so England and Slovakia, I believe, would have been tied on points.
Right.
And Slovenia has 11 points, so they would have been just right behind. So you know what? I take that back, actually. It was pretty important for England as well to get that point. But to see what that meant to Scotland, man, that was just such a gut-wrenching ending, heartbreaking ending to that game.
I'm Gaelic and I'm Celtic, and I share, I suppose, a lot of genealogy with the Scots, but I'm not Scottish. But the hairs on the back of my neck when they sang O Flower of Scotland before the game, Andrew, and the way they went about it, Scott Brown, just the first thing he did, right, I'm going to find their best player and I'm going to clatter into him. I mean, Scott Brown should have sent off. He had 2 physical assaults on Dele Alli. He took him out of the game. Dele Alli did nothing. England had a midfield that, wow, a midfield pairing of Eric Dyer and Jake Livermore, which caused me to...
No, please, no more.
I saw your
vomit
tweet.
Inducing.
I saw your tweet, and I was very happy that it came from @JJ Devaney and not the show account.
I showed restraint.
Where you just tore into Eric Dyer. It'd be one thing for you to have said Eric Dyer is having a horrible game. But no. You went way further than that and used this as an indictment on him as a player.
Just don't think he's a good footballer.
Yeah, that was the tweet.
I think he might be better at centre back. I don't know. I just wanted to ask him, what do you do? Like, what are you doing here?
What does that mean?
Doesn't pass it very well, not that creative, just bleh.
He's a hard-nosed defensive midfielder who is versatile in that he can also play as a center half.
He can be crap in a number of positions.
You're wrong.
I just don't think he's that good. I don't get the hype. I really don't. His range of passing... Honestly,
I mean, look, he's not Tottenham's best player. He's not England's best player, but he's good.
If I'm Gareth Southgate, like to play 2 holding midfielders against Scotland, come on, it's supposed to be England.
I mean, they did score a couple, but it wasn't until really it was when Oxlade-Chamberlain came on. The goal that he scored from the first touch that he had, which was beautiful, to the way he worked it to the center of the box. Although that was bad goalkeeping.
The sun was in his eyes, not for the first time. I really think the sun was in his eyes. How could he have not? If he'd stayed up, it would have hit him in the chest.
Who decides who is going which way? Like Scotland is the home team. I would think they would have some say over that.
No, it's a toss of the coin.
That rule needs to be changed.
Joe Hart wore a baseball hat at the start of the game.
I like when goalkeepers do that.
By the way, that roar when Griffith scores the second goal, that is primal.
Oh, yeah.
You're so right. We're adrenaline junkies as soccer fans.
Yep.
We're chasing that.
Yep, that's exactly right. My whole life, for the last 7 years, I've been chasing that Landon Donovan Algeria feeling.
That's why we watch terrible games.
Because you're just waiting for that moment.
In the hope that we have that moment.
By the way, I don't want to, and we're going to hear from Steve Nicol, who had some interesting thoughts on that game as a Scotsman himself. I don't want to go too off track, but thanks, Fox, for your audio-visual problems. So basically, everyone watching in the United States knew that all of those goals had gone in about a second and a half before we had the visual of seeing them go in. That couldn't have been fixed at some point?
Yeah, but whoever's on the weekend watch for Fox has got to see that. And you know what you do? Cut the commentary. Seriously.
Well, I don't know. That seems like a...
Well, I guess the sound of the sound of the crowd going mental would still happen anyway if the sound is out of sync. It was just bad.
I mean, I'm not using this as a reason to go off on Fox. They've done a good job, but they're going to have the World Cup. This stuff needs to get sorted out because that did affect my enjoyment of seeing those 3 late goals just a little bit, knowing that Griffith's goals had gone in because the announcer told me before I actually saw it happen.
Yeah, and quite a few. I don't know how many seconds, but quite a distance in commentary terms.
Yeah,
it was too much.
It was probably a second, if that. But that's enough time for your eyes to have seen, something that your ears haven't heard yet. I don't know. It was very frustrating. Here's Steve Nicol, though, who you could tell just
deflated.
Genuinely, yeah. Here he was on what he considers a horrible draw for Scotland.
Absolutely gutted to be outplayed and be 1 down with 7 or 8 minutes to go, and then find yourself 2-1 ahead going into injury time, and to lose the goal the way Scotland did. It kind of sums up what this qualifying group has been like for Scotland. Any opportunity they've ever had during it, they've squandered it. And they did it against the worst team they could possibly do it against, and the old enemy, England.
Here he is going into greater detail on that equalising goal for England.
Well, it's unprofessional is what it is. Initially, Gordon makes a great save from Dyer's free kick. Scotland actually end up looking as though they're going to go on the break. And 30 yards from their own goal, you can kick it over the stand. You can stick it up the other end. Just do whatever you can so that England don't get the ball. And it's a poor pass. England get the ball. It's whipped back in, and all of a sudden it's 2-2. It's so unprofessional, and it sticks in my throat.
He's so right about that.
Was it Armstrong?
I believe it was Stuart Armstrong.
Breaking with the ball, and if he plays the ball to his left, that's where all the space is.
Yep.
There's I don't know who it was, which one of the Scottish players was racing away in space, and he could have carried it right to the corner flag. And that is that. There was no time.
Well, no, I think it happened. There would have been it was 4 minutes of stoppage
time. There would have been a kick
I think it happened at
by the time the kick out.
It was like at 92:40 or so that this took place. So England might have had one more rush, but the fact that they would have had to regroup, Scotland would have had to
reset. Yeah.
Right. If he just booms it downfield, but instead he tries to play a kind of a fancy pass, hoping that it springs some kind of break. And I think it was Chris Smalling for England who did a really nice job in intercepting it and immediately
Sterling put the ball in,
and then it was a great finish from Harry Kane.
It really was. And the centre halves, he got between the centre halves, they just lost him.
Yeah. We've seen that happen so many times before. I remember with the U.S., I think it might have been Michael Bradley in that Portugal game in the World Cup.
Oh, good Lord,
which,
yeah.
And granted, a lot still had to happen in both cases.
The ball into Cronaldo was unbelievable.
From Cronaldo
to Nani, was it?
No, it was not. I don't remember now.
Doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. But just what a game, or at least what a final 8 to 10 minutes or so. A couple other games worth mentioning. Ireland picking up a late draw earlier today. I imagine you're at least somewhat pleased with it?
Yeah, kind of pleased. It's as you were in the group with Wales subsequently drawing 1-1 in Serbia. Mm-hmm. So there we are. Ireland did not play well in the first half, Andrew, and this was I wouldn't say a ragtag Austrian team, but an Austrian team that was depleted, but they played really, really well. They scored the first half. It was 1-0 at half time, and Ireland came out and pummeled them really in the second half. It was a long ball over the top. And
yes, it was. It was like the definition.
It was a long, yeah.
And John Walters just kind of bullied the defender a little bit.
He did, but Dragovic had been rolling on the ground. He was genuinely hurt, Andrew. He was limping heavily. And I'm like, they're definitely going to take Dragovic off. And they didn't. And it certainly played a role because Jonathan Walters just shoved him aside and a brilliant volley to rescue a point. Although late on they could have won. Ireland scored a goal late on, but it was adjudged to being a foul on the goalkeeper.
Yeah, by the way, here's how that goal sounded. John Champion on the call.
Walters, turning stride of his. Little nudge. Walters!
The noise in that place, too.
Oh.
It was the Aviva.
The Aviva, yep, the old Lansdowne Road. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. And now, the fall is huge for Ireland. We're joint top with Serbia. If we'd won today, we would have just distanced ourselves a little bit from the pack. Mm-hmm. We've got Serbia at home, which is good, but they're a really good side.
Tough one.
Yeah. We've got Serbia at home, Georgia away, then Serbia at home. That's a tough run of games. And then Moldova and Wales to round it all off.
Yeah, not super easy, but right now you're sitting, like you said, in second place behind Serbia, tied on points, but just behind on goal differential. But it's close. It's a goal differential that you could potentially overtake. 2 back of them. So
look, if someone had said to me you're going to take 4 points off Austria, you would have been very, very pleased with that. Yeah. And that's what we've done. One
other game that I wanted to mention from UEFA qualifying, it was really an interesting weekend for Tottenham players around the nations. You had Harry Kane scoring the winner. You had now ruling Eric Dyer as just a crap player. And you had Hugo Lloris, who's a great goalkeeper, with a moment that he'll probably wake up in the middle of the night for the next few weeks just screaming, replaying in his head the ball that he plays.
He's got a whole summer to dwell on this.
With the last kick of the ball from the center circle.
And shanks it.
Yeah, and Sweden scores.
Now, it's a great finish.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's into an open net because he just had a rush of blood to the head and decided he was Manuel Neuer.
It was just a moment of horror for Hugo Lloris, an incredible moment for Sweden, who now overtake France, who I had just been talking about as the best team in the world. Sweden go ahead of France in the group, tied on points, ahead on goal differential. Still time to go.
No, France are still in a good position and have the games ahead of them that they can, qualify and win the group.
The real loser in that, it wasn't France. Really, it was the Netherlands, who were probably hoping that France would just take care of business, Sweden wouldn't gain any points, the Netherlands could then reach Sweden on points, and there'd kind of be a battle maybe for that number 2 spot. But instead, now you've got 2 teams at the top, and granted, the Netherlands are just 1 win behind them. If either of them slip up and the Netherlands win that game, they will join them tied atop the group, but I think they were probably hoping that the route to that number 2 spot would maybe be a little bit easier.
I mean, it's rare to say this in soccer, but you're so right. This was a gimme. I mean, France just threw it away. Yeah. They totally gave Sweden the 3 points with that. Interesting article on the Independent online, the UK Independent, about how France now will be forced to change a little bit under Deschamps, who's a very, very conservative coach. For example, Sissoko, who's had a stinking season at Spurs and will be out the door probably over the summer, over the next few months, he is still a regular in this French team. And say someone like Kylian Mbappe, for all he's done, he's not been ushered in to kind of add youth to this team or add foreign players to this team. And the article basically says that this result probably forces Deschamps' hand to change things a little bit now and maybe bring in the youth. And the clamour for the youth for players like Mbappe to start is going to be, and the 2 Monaco fullbacks is going to be overwhelming. So maybe there's a flip side, a positive side to this for France.
That could be. Speaking of the youth, congratulations to England's under-20 side as they beat Venezuela 1-0 to win the under-20 World Cup. It's England's first World Cup win of any kind since their famous 1966 World Cup.
51 years.
Yeah, how about that? It was Everton's Dominic Calvert-Lewin who scored the winner in the 34th. This was Everton, I guess, was the big winner of this tournament with the goal from him today, and then Lookman, who scored in the semifinal, also an Everton player who has seen time with the senior team as well for Everton. But congrats to England. I saw there was a video circulating online of the senior team at training watching the end of the Under-20 World Cup. It was pretty cool, all of them in the locker room together applauding it. And
well, their manager has been a vocal. He's sent a good luck message. Gareth Southgate has sent a good luck message to the Under-20s all the way through. And with the time difference, it was harder for him to have a more of a supportive role in what really used to be his job. looking after youth teams.
Yeah.
So every single bit of commentary comes down to the one fact: are these players, even if they have won an Under-20 World Cup, going to get their game in their Premier League, their respective Premier League teams? Right. And that really is the future. I know it's not quite the same. Ireland finished third in the U20 World Cup in '99. Handful, Andrew. Richard Dunn, Damien Duff, Robbie Keane went on to play and be absolute stalwarts of the senior team. So many other players kind of fell down the divisions and never had the careers you would have thought they would have had by, you know, beating Argentina and along the way. I think they beat Nigeria too. So there's a caveat with this.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see.
And it's playing time.
We'll see what certain players become, like Dominic Solanke, who now goes to Liverpool from Chelsea. Josh Onuma has gotten time with Spurs first team here and there in EFL Cup games, things like that. So, we'll see what some of these guys become. You're right. There's still a lot of time for their careers to go any number of ways.
But actually, celebrate now has been, though, enjoy this. Because this is, especially at the international level, you've broken a 51-year duck. Credit to England. That's fantastic.
Yep.
But now, someone was saying it's incumbent upon the Premier League teams to play these guys. Sorry. Not how it works.
And then one final note before we get out tonight, and it's not a good one. Gabriel Jesus breaks his eye socket in a friendly versus Argentina, a game played in Australia. This is bad, for the obvious reason that this is a really important young player who now is dealing with a pretty ugly injury. But it was only made worse when I saw who did it to him.
Nicholas Otamendi.
Unbelievable. Now,
it's obviously
Manchester City teammates.
Yeah, it's just terrible. And Otamendi must be feeling awful.
I would hope so. I think that's the human reaction. I mean, I guess it's now incumbent upon Gabriel Jesus to let Otamendi know no hard feelings. Otherwise, this could become a really awkward thing.
It shouldn't, and I'd like to go on record as saying I didn't see the tackle, so I can't talk to the viciousness.
It was an elbow to the head.
All right.
That broke his eye socket.
As we know,
so I think that without having seen it, enough to know. Elbow, head, broken eye socket.
It's violent, but I still don't want to say that there was any kind of malice aforethought in it.
Look, I said last week, Brazil and Argentina should just not be playing friendlies.
But here's another thing as well. I mean, what control does Manchester City have over a young player like that, who they've forked out so much money for, to be playing a friendly? If anyone needs a rest, he needs a rest. Why is he down in Argentina playing friendlies?
Well, it was in Australia.
Or Australia, rather.
I don't know.
Well, I think I know. It's a promotions company that runs the schedule for friendlies for teams like Brazil and Argentina. It's like a tour.
Yep. Yeah, an ugly incident for sure, but we're not going to go out on that note because this was a good night. I'm not going to say it was a great night, but this was a good night for the U.S.
I think it's solid. I think we go with the positivity of our tweeters.
Yeah, I would tend to side with that group as well. Before we get out, how about just one last time of hearing John Strong's voice crack? Can we?
Chicharito being harassed. Bradley's going to escape from Herrera. Bradley trying to chip on Joa, and he scores! Michael Bradley!
Good stuff, my friend. To you, I say...
Take it later, fun boy.
See ya.
Oh, take care.
You've been listening to the Caught Offside Soccer Podcast.